First contact goes wrong. The deep black of uncharted space captain. Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching stars paint silver streaks across the endless black. 3 months into their deep space research mission, and they hadn't found anything more exciting than a few dead planets and some interesting mineral deposits. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago, but she didn't mind. After 15 years exploring the galaxy's edge, she'd learned that space had its own rhythm, and you couldn't rush discovery. The Prometheus wasn't the newest ship in humanity's fleet, but she was reliable. Built 12 years ago during the Great Expansion, the vessel carried the scars and modifications of countless missions. Her hull showed the telltale signs of micrometeor impacts, plasma burns from solar flares, and the odd patch job that came with exploring unknown space. To Elena, those marks were badges of honor. Every scratch told a story of survival. An unexpected visitor. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen burst through the observation deck doors, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled excitement. Chen had been Elena's science officer for 4 years, and she'd never seen him move so fast. "Captain," Chen said, catching his breath, "we've got something big on long-range sensors. Really big." Elena set down her cold coffee and followed Chen to the bridge. The Prometheus hummed around them, a familiar sound that had become as comforting as a heartbeat. The bridge crew looked up as they entered, faces showing the same mixture of excitement and apprehension that came with the unknown. "Report," Elena said, settling into her command chair. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, their sensor specialist, turned from her console with wide eyes. "Captain, we're detecting a massive vessel approximately 1 million kilometers off our starboard bow. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases." Elena leaned forward. "Specifications? Length approximately 1,500 meters. Mass readings suggest heavy construction. The design is completely alien, Captain. Sleek, organic-looking curves with what appears to be some kind of crystalline superstructure." "Are they aware of us?" "Unknown, ma'am. They're not actively scanning, but a ship that size probably has sensors we can't even detect." Elena considered their options. First contact protocols were clear: attempt peaceful communication, maintain defensive readiness, and document everything. "Mr. Chen, prepare a standard first contact package. Ms. Kim, continue monitoring but keep our scans passive. I don't want to seem threatening." The Kethvar Empire arrives. What Elena didn't know was that the alien vessel had been watching them for the past 6 hours. Aboard the magnificent flagship Eternal Dominion, High Admiral Zexthan of the Kethvar Empire studied the primitive craft that had wandered into claimed space. Zexthan was old, even by Kethvar standards. His silver-blue skin bore the ritual scarifications of 40 successful conquest campaigns, and his 4 eyes held the cold intelligence that had made him the Empire's most feared military commander. For 800 years, the Kethvar had expanded their territory through a simple formula: assess, intimidate, absorb. It had never failed. Science Officer Yilneth. Zexthan's voice resonated through the bridge with natural authority. "What do our scans reveal about these newcomers?" Yilneth, younger than most of the bridge crew but brilliant beyond his years, consulted his instruments. "The vessel appears to be constructed of primitive metal alloys, Admiral. Basic fusion propulsion, crude energy weapons, minimal shielding, standard characteristics of a species that achieved spaceflight within the last few centuries. Expected crew complement? Based on ship size and primitive life support requirements, perhaps 200 individuals. The species appears to be bipedal, carbon-based, requiring oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere." Zexthan nodded with satisfaction. Another simple addition to the Empire. Open communication channels. First words. Between worlds, on the Prometheus, Elena had just finished reviewing first contact protocols when the communication array lit up, like a festival display. "Captain," Communications Officer David Park announced, "we're receiving a transmission. It's definitely artificial, but the signal structure is incredible. They're somehow broadcasting on 17 different frequencies, simultaneously. Can you establish two-way communication?" "Working on it, ma'am." Their technology is significantly more advanced than ours, but I think I can create a basic translation matrix. The main screen flickered, then resolved into an image that made several crew members gasp. High Admiral Zexthon appeared before them, his imposing figure radiating authority even across the vast distance of space. "Primitive vessel," Zexthon began, his voice translated into accented but understandable English. "You have entered territory claimed by the Kethvar Empire. I am High Admiral Zexthon, Supreme Commander of the 3rd Expansion Fleet." Elena stood, straightening her uniform. This was the moment every deep space captain dreamed of and feared. "High Admiral, I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and peaceful contact with other intelligent species." Zexthon made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace? How typical of young species. You misunderstand your situation, Captain. This is not a negotiation. You will submit to immediate boarding and integration into the Empire, or your vessel will be destroyed." Elena felt her stomach drop. So much for peaceful first contact. "Admiral, I'm sure we can reach some accommodation. Perhaps we could discuss trade agreements or cultural exchanges." "There is nothing to discuss. Your species' primitive technology and limited development make you suitable for labor classification 7. You should consider this an honor. Most species we encounter are only suitable for classification 9. Behind Elena, she heard Lieutenant Kim whisper, "Labor classification? Are they talking about slavery?" "The assessment begins," Zexthon gestured to someone off-screen. "We will now conduct standard assessment protocols. Do not interfere with our scans, or we will consider it an act of aggression." Elena's training kicked in. First contact had gone wrong, but they weren't helpless. "All stations, yellow alert. Maintain defensive posture, but do not actively target the alien vessel. Mr. Chen, start recording everything. If we don't make it home, at least Earth will know what happened." The Prometheus shuddered slightly as invisible scanning beams penetrated her hull. On the Kethvar flagship, Yilnith watched data stream across his displays. "Initial assessment. Confirms primitive construction," he reported to Zexthon. "Hull composition is primarily titanium steel composite with ceramic reinforcement layers. Crude but functional. Power systems? Multiple fusion reactors, but they appear to be operating at minimal capacity. Either their technology is failing, or this is their normal operational state." Zexthon nodded. "Continue the assessment. I want complete technical specifications before we proceed with integration." On the Prometheus, Elena watched her crew work with quiet efficiency. They were good people, she thought. Whatever happened next, they deserved better than becoming slaves to an alien empire. "Captain," Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez called from her station. "They're scanning everything." "Engineering, weapons, life support, even our food replicators. But there's something strange about their technique." "What do you mean?" "Their scanners are incredibly sophisticated, but they're looking for specific things. It's like they have a checklist of what primitive species should have, and they're just confirming we fit the pattern." Elena frowned. "Meaning?" "Meaning they might be missing what makes us different. Human engineering philosophy. What the Kethvar couldn't understand was that human engineering was born from necessity, not comfort. When humanity first reached for the stars, they did so while their home world still burned with conflict. Every system on every human ship was designed with one primary consideration: survival. The Prometheus looked primitive because humans had learned that simple, robust systems survived longer than elegant, complex ones. Her titanium steel hull wasn't crude. It was layered with adaptive polymers that could self-repair minor damage. Her fusion reactors weren't operating at minimal capacity. They were designed to run at 15% power for years while maintaining the ability to surge to maximum output in seconds. Every system had redundant backups. Every component was over-engineered to function in conditions that would destroy more advanced alien technology. Humans had learned through bitter experience that space was hostile, and survival required preparation for every possible disaster. The scanning continues. "Weapons assessment," Zexthon ordered. Yilnith consulted his instruments. Limited energy. Weapons primarily laser-based with some plasma capability. Kinetic weapons appear to be simple mass drivers. No exotic matter weapons, no dimensional manipulation, no consciousness disruptors. Defensive systems? Basic energy shields powered by the fusion reactors. The shields appear to be single-layer constructs, though I'm detecting some unusual harmonics in the field generation. What Yilneth didn't realize was that human shields were designed to absorb and redistribute energy rather than simply block it. The unusual harmonics were actually sophisticated wave patterns that could turn an enemy's weapon energy against them. Life support analysis? Remarkably robust for such a primitive system. They appear to have redundant systems for everything. Air, water, food production, waste recycling. It's almost as if they expect their primary systems to fail regularly. Zexthon was becoming impatient. Of course they expect failures. Primitive technology is unreliable. Complete your assessment so we can proceed with integration. Growing unease on the Prometheus, Elena noticed something that made her uneasy. The alien ship had been scanning them for over an hour, but it hadn't moved to a more advantageous tactical position. Either they were supremely confident or they didn't understand what they were looking at. "Mr. Chen," she said quietly, "what's your assessment of their scanning technique? Sophisticated sensors, but they're using broad-spectrum analysis designed for rapid classification. It's like they're checking boxes on a form rather than trying to understand our actual capabilities. Could they be missing something important?" "Definitely. They're seeing our basic systems, but not how those systems integrate. It's like examining a single gear and thinking you understand the entire clockwork." Elena nodded. The Kethvar were clearly more advanced, but they seemed to be operating from a position of assumption rather than analysis. That might be humanity's only advantage. The final assessment. Zexthon grew tired of waiting. "Science officer, summarize your findings." "The human vessel represents typical primitive spacefaring technology," Yilneth reported. "Limited weapons, basic defenses, crude but functional propulsion. The species shows potential for basic labor tasks but lacks the sophistication for advanced integration into imperial society. Crew complement? Approximately 200 individuals, as predicted. Life signs indicate standard bipedal humanoid physiology." "Very well." Zexthon turned back to the communication screen where Captain Vasquez waited. "Captain, our assessment is complete. Your vessel and crew will be processed for integration into the Empire. You have demonstrated sufficient intelligence for labor classification, though your technology remains disappointingly primitive." Elena felt anger rising in her chest. "Admiral, I think you may have misunderstood something about humanity. There is nothing to misunderstand. You are a young species with limited capabilities. Accept your role in the Empire, and you will be treated fairly." "And if I refuse?" Zexthon's expression hardened. "Then you will discover why the Kethvar Empire has dominated this region of space for 3,000 years. The communication channel closed, leaving the Prometheus alone with the knowledge that first contact had failed in the worst possible way. Terror in the data. The deeper analysis begins. Science officer Yilneth should have been satisfied with his assessment, but something nagged at him. In his 300 years of service, he had analyzed the technology of 47 species, and the patterns were always consistent. Primitive species had primitive technology, crude, inefficient, barely functional systems that struggled to maintain basic spaceflight. But the human ship didn't quite fit the pattern. "Computer," Yilneth said to his personal workstation, "run detailed analysis on human vessel construction materials. Cross-reference with all known primitive species databases." Data cascaded across his screens. The initial assessment had been correct. Titanium steel composite construction, ceramic reinforcement, layers standard fusion reactors. But as the computer dug deeper into the molecular analysis, anomalies began to appear. "Computer, explain molecular cohesion ratings for human hull materials." Hull materials show tensile strength rating of 847,000 units per square centimeter. This exceeds theoretical maximums for titanium steel composite by 340%. Yilneth stared at the screen. That was impossible. Run diagnostic on scanning equipment. All scanning equipment functioning within normal parameters. Repeat molecular analysis of human hull materials. The same results appeared. According to the deep scans, human hull material wasn't just strong, it was impossibly strong. The molecular structure showed perfect crystalline alignment at the atomic level, something that required manufacturing techniques the Kethvar had only mastered within the last millennium. Impossible engineering. Computer analyze human reactor. Design specifications. New data filled the screen, and Yilneth felt his first real moment of concern. The human fusion reactors weren't primitive at all. They were elegantly simple, but that simplicity masked incredible sophistication. Reactor containment field specifications show magnetic field strength of 890,000 teslas. This exceeds Kethvar standard reactor containment by 45%. Computer, that can't be correct. Primitive species cannot generate magnetic fields of that strength. Analysis. Confirmed through 3 separate scanning passes. Human reactor containment exceeds Kethvar specifications. Yilneth called up the power generation analysis. If the containment was stronger than expected, what about the actual energy output? Human power generation capacity, 847 terawatts per reactor. Current output, 127 terawatts per reactor, operating at 15% capacity. The numbers made no sense. If the humans were operating their reactors at 15% capacity, that meant their total potential power output was nearly 6,000 terawatts. The Eternal Dominion, pride of the Kethvar fleet, had a maximum power output of 4,000 terawatts. Computer, explain why primitive species would build reactors with 500% power redundancy. Insufficient data to determine motivation. The defense system. Mystery Yilneth turned his attention to the human defensive systems. The initial scan had revealed simple energy shields, exactly what would be expected from a primitive species. But the detailed molecular analysis told a different story. The shield generators themselves were built with the same impossible precision as the hull materials. More disturbing, the shield emitters were arranged in a pattern that suggested far more sophisticated understanding of energy dynamics than any primitive species should possess. Computer, model human shield configuration under combat stress. The simulation ran, and Yilneth watched in growing alarm as the computer predicted shield behavior. The human shields weren't designed to simply absorb incoming energy. They were designed to capture it, process it, and redirect it back at attackers. Computer, simulate Kethvar plasma cannon strike against human shield configuration. The simulation showed a Kethvar energy weapon firing at the human ship. Instead of simply absorbing the blast, the human shields caught the energy, channeled it through their generators, and fired it back at twice the original power. "This is impossible," Yilneth whispered. "Primitive species don't build adaptive defensive systems." The weapons that weren't there. The weapons analysis had shown exactly what Yilneth expected. Basic laser systems, simple plasma cannons, crude kinetic weapons. But the detailed scan revealed something that made his blood run cold. The human weapons weren't mounted on the ship's exterior. They were built into the hull itself. Computer, explain human weapon integration methodology. Human vessel hull contains 347 concealed weapon ports. Weapon systems are retractable and stored within armored compartments. Current configuration shows 0% of weapons deployed. Computer, simulate full weapons deployment. The holographic display showed the human ship transforming. Weapon ports opened across the entire hull surface like flowering death. Energy cannons emerged from hidden compartments. Missile launchers unfolded from what had appeared to be simple hull plating. The ship that had looked like a primitive research vessel revealed itself as something far more dangerous. Computer, calculate human vessel firepower at full deployment. Estimated firepower, 2,300 terawatts focused energy weapons, 47 missile launching systems, 156 kinetic weapon systems. Combined offensive capability exceeds Kethvar flagship specifications by 78%. Yilneth felt sick. The humans hadn't just hidden their weapons. They had built their entire ship as a weapon that could disguise itself as a peaceful research vessel. The life support revelation. Even the life support systems were wrong. What had appeared to be redundant systems for an inefficient primitive species turned out to be something far more sophisticated. Computer, analyze human life support redundancy rationale. Human life support systems maintain full operational capacity with 85% of components offline. Air recycling systems can maintain breathable atmosphere for 847 days without external input. Water recycling achieves 99.7% efficiency. Food production systems can sustain crew indefinitely. The implications were staggering. The humans had built their ship to survive anything. Total power failure, hull breaches, system failures. Their life support could keep the crew alive through disasters that would kill any other species. Computer, compare human survival systems to Kethvar specifications. Human survival systems exceed Kethvar military specifications by 340%. The terrible truth, Yilnith realized he was looking at technology that wasn't primitive at all. It was military technology disguised as civilian equipment. Every system on the human ship was over-engineered for survival in the most hostile conditions imaginable. Computer, access Imperial database. Search for species that developed spaceflight during active warfare. Search complete. No species in Imperial database achieved spaceflight during active planetary warfare. Computer theoretical analysis. If a species achieved spaceflight while engaged in global warfare, what would their ship construction priorities be? Theoretical analysis. Survival, redundancy, concealment, overwhelming firepower in minimal space, ability to operate independently for extended periods. Every one of those priorities matched what Yilnith was seeing in the human ship. Computer, how many species in Imperial database show evidence of building military vessels disguised as civilian craft? 0 species show evidence of systematic military deception in civilian vessel construction. The report that changed everything. Yilnith knew he had to report his findings, but he also knew that High Admiral Zexton wouldn't want to hear them. The Admiral had built his career on the assumption that primitive meant weak, and advanced meant strong. The human ship challenged every assumption the Kethvar Empire had made about technological development. Admiral, Yilnith called across the bridge, I need to speak with you privately. Speak, Science Officer, the assessment is complete. Sir, with respect, I believe we need to reconsider our approach to the humans. Zexton's 4 eyes fixed on Yilnith with irritation. The humans are primitive. The assessment confirms this. Sir, the detailed analysis reveals significant anomalies. The human ship is not what it appears to be. Explain. Yilnith took a breath. Their hull materials exceed our own specifications. Their power generation capacity is 50% greater than our flagship. Their weapon systems are completely concealed and designed for surprise attacks. Their defensive systems can turn our own weapons against us. The bridge fell silent. Every officer was staring at Yilnith with expressions ranging from disbelief to horror. That is impossible, Zexton said coldly. Primitive species do not build ships superior to Kethvar technology. Sir, I've run the analysis 3 times. The humans aren't primitive. They're survivors. The species that brought war to space. Computer, Yilnith announced to the bridge, access all available data on human homeworld and species development. Information began flowing across the main display. What they saw made every Kethvar officer step backward in shock. Human homeworld, Earth. Species achieved spaceflight while engaged in global warfare. Historical records show continuous military conflict for documented history. First interstellar vessels launched during active continental war. Zexton stared at the display. They achieved spaceflight during war? Yes, sir. More than that, they've never stopped fighting. Every human ship is built with the expectation of combat. They don't have civilian vessels, sir. They have ships that can pretend to be civilian. The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. For 3,000 years, the Kethvar had encountered species that achieved spaceflight through cooperation and peaceful development. Species that built beautiful, efficient ships designed for exploration and trade. They had never encountered a species that had dragged their wars into space with them. The final realization. Sir, Yilneth continued, his voice barely above a whisper, I don't think they're operating at minimal capacity because their technology is failing. I think they're operating at minimal capacity because they don't want us to know what they're really capable of. Zexthon turned to his weapons officer. What is our tactical assessment? The weapons officer consulted his instruments, then looked up with poorly concealed fear. Admiral, if the science officer's analysis is correct, the human vessel outguns us significantly. Their concealed weapons, superior power generation, and adaptive defenses would give them a substantial advantage in combat. How substantial? Sir, they could destroy us. The bridge fell into complete silence. For 800 years, High Admiral, Zexthon had built his reputation on the simple formula of imperial expansion: assess, intimidate, absorb. It had never failed because the Empire had never encountered a species that was stronger than they appeared. Admiral, Yilneth said quietly, I believe we have made a serious error in judgment. The humans aren't primitive. They're the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. The communication they should have made on the Prometheus, Captain Elena. Vasquez stood on her bridge watching the alien flagship. Her crew was ready for whatever came next, but she still hoped diplomacy might prevail. Captain, Communications Officer Park announced, we're receiving another transmission from the alien vessel. The screen flickered, showing High Admiral Zexthon's face. But something had changed. The arrogant confidence was gone, replaced by something Elena had never expected to see in an alien conqueror's eyes. Fear. Captain Vasquez, Zexthon began, his voice carefully controlled. I believe there may have been some misunderstanding in our previous communication. Elena raised an eyebrow. Oh? Upon further analysis, we recognize that humanity represents a more significant technological achievement than we initially assessed. I see. And what does that mean for our situation? Zexthon paused, clearly struggling with words he had never expected to say. Perhaps we could discuss those trade agreements and cultural exchanges you mentioned. Elena looked around her bridge, at her crew. They had been preparing for a fight, but maybe, just maybe, first contact could still end peacefully. Admiral, she said carefully, I think that would be an excellent place to start. But both captains knew that this was just the beginning. The Kethvar Empire had discovered that humanity wasn't just another primitive species to be absorbed. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had learned to survive by being stronger than they appeared. And across the galaxy, that discovery would change everything.